The house was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that feels wrong the moment you step into it. The kind that makes your chest tighten before your brain can explain why. When police officers walked into the Watts family home that afternoon, nothing looked broken, nothing was overturned. The lights were off, the air was still. A child's shoe sat by the door, a purse rested where it had been dropped. A phone lay abandoned on the couch, as if its owner had stepped away for just a moment and never came back. But families don't disappear mid-sentence. Mothers don't leave their children behind. And silence like this doesn't happen without a reason. At that moment, no one knew it yet, but 4 lives had already been taken. And the man standing calmly nearby, the man asking officers to help find his missing family, was the only person who knew exactly where they were. To understand how something this unthinkable could happen, we have to rewind, not to the crime itself, but to the life that came before it. Because this story isn't just about what happened inside that house. It's about what was happening quietly, invisibly, long before anyone thought to worry. Frederick, Colorado, is the kind of place people choose when they want stability, neat neighborhoods, new homes, children riding bikes in the street. It's a town shaped around the idea that danger happens somewhere else. The Watts family fit right into that picture. Shanann Watts was 34 years old, pregnant with her 3rd child, and deeply devoted to her role as a mother. Her daughters, Bella, 4, and Celeste, just 3, were energetic, expressive, and visibly attached to her. Their laughter filled the house. Their presence shaped every part of Shanann's life. Chris Watts, her husband, seemed like her opposite, quiet, soft-spoken, emotionally reserved. He worked long hours in the oil fields and kept largely to himself. To neighbors and co-workers, he was polite and unremarkable, the kind of man people rarely notice. Together, they looked like balance. Online, Shanann shared their lives openly, photos, videos, smiles, birthday parties. From the outside, their life looked full, busy, loud, happy. But sometimes, the most dangerous situations are the ones that look the most ordinary. We want to pause briefly here. If you appreciate true crime stories that go beyond shock, stories that help us recognize warning signs, understand human behavior, and stay aware of danger when it doesn't look like danger, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support truly matters. It allows us to keep telling these stories responsibly and helps all of us become more aware in real life. Now, let's keep going. Shanann was expressive, emotional, and deeply invested in the people she loved. She believed in communication, sometimes intensely so. She talked through problems. She confronted discomfort. She tried to fix what felt broken. She was also managing chronic health conditions, including lupus, which affected her energy, her mood, and her daily life. On top of that, she carried the mental load of the household, the finances, and the emotional well-being of her children. She wasn't perfect, no one is, but she was present, and she was trying. In the weeks leading up to her death, Shanann confided in friends that her marriage felt like it was slipping away. Chris had grown distant, less affectionate, less responsive. Something had changed, and she could feel it. What she didn't know was how far gone he already was. Chris Watts did not look like a man capable of violence. He didn't argue loudly. He didn't show anger. He didn't intimidate anyone. In fact, many people described him as passive, almost invisible. But psychologically, Chris showed something far more dangerous than rage: emotional absence. He avoided conflict entirely. Instead of expressing dissatisfaction, he internalized it. Instead of confronting problems, he shut down. Over time, resentment doesn't disappear. It hardens. People like this don't explode outward. They collapse inward. And when the pressure becomes unbearable, the release can be catastrophic. By 2018, the Watts family was under significant strain. Financial stress had followed them for years, including a previous bankruptcy. Another baby was on the way. Responsibilities were increasing, but emotionally, Chris was pulling further back. Shanann noticed. She tried to talk. She tried to reconnect. She planned trips. She sent messages. She asked directly if there was someone else. Chris gave vague answers, half-truths, silence. And while Shanann was desperately trying to save her marriage, Chris was quietly detaching from it. During the summer of 2018, while Shanann and the children were away in North Carolina, Chris began an affair with a co-worker. This wasn't just betrayal, it was escape. With this other woman, Chris could pretend he wasn't a husband or a father or a man drowning in responsibilities. He could imagine a clean slate, no debts, no obligations, no past. And the longer he lived in that fantasy, the more his real life felt like a cage. Here's where psychology matters. Most people faced with this situation choose one of two paths. They confront the damage or they leave. Chris did neither. Instead, he began thinking in absolutes. To him, there were no consequences, only obstacles. There are moments in true crime when the most terrifying part isn't what we see, but what we know is coming. August 13th, 2018 began like any other Monday morning. The sky over Frederick, Colorado was still dark. The streets were quiet. Most people were asleep, unaware that inside one suburban home, a family story was ending. Shanann Watts arrived home shortly before 2 a.m. She was exhausted, pregnant, emotionally drained from weeks of tension she couldn't quite put into words. A friend dropped her off after a delayed flight, watching Shanann walk to the front door, alive, hopeful, still believing there was something left to save. That was the last time anyone outside that house would see her. What happened inside the Watts home in the early hours of that morning was not loud. There were no neighbors awakened by screams, no frantic phone calls, no sudden chaos. That silence matters, because silence tells us this wasn't a spontaneous explosion of rage. It wasn't a fight that went too far. What unfolded was controlled, deliberate, and devastating. Chris Watts would later give different versions of the events, but through investigation, evidence, and confession, a clearer picture emerged, one defined not by emotion, but by detachment. Shanann never had a chance. The most chilling truth of this case is that the violence came from someone she trusted completely, someone she shared a bed with, someone she believed was struggling but never imagined was capable of erasing her. One of the most haunting details to emerge later is that Bella and Celeste were not unaware that something was wrong. At some point, after Shanann was killed, the girls woke up. Imagine that for a moment. A quiet house, darkness, their mother unresponsive, their father behaving in a way they had never seen before, confusion without language, fear without understanding. These details are almost unbearable, but they matter because they remind us that this wasn't just about one moment of violence. It was about the complete destruction of safety. Chris did not stop. Before dawn, Chris loaded his truck, the same truck he used every day for work. The same routine, the same path. To anyone watching from the outside, this would have looked like an ordinary Monday morning. But nothing about this drive was ordinary. Shanann's body was placed in the vehicle. The children were alive. That fact alone forces us to confront the depth of this crime, not as an act of anger, but as a sequence of decisions made while fully conscious of what he was doing. This is where many people ask, how could someone do this? Psychologically, Chris Watts had already detached from reality. In his mind, his family was no longer human. It was an obstacle standing between him and the life he wanted. Chris drove to an oil site known as Cervi 319, a remote location tied directly to his job, a place he chose deliberately, a place few people would question him being. What happened there is not something we describe for shock value. It doesn't need it. This is where Shanann was buried. This is where Bella and Celeste were killed. And this is where the final line between normal man and monster disappears completely. There is no justification, no explanation that softens this. Only the reality that these acts were carried out by someone who believed he could erase his family and continue his life uninterrupted. By the time the sun rose, Chris Watts was back in character. He texted coworkers. He went about his day. He acted concerned when Shanann didn't answer her phone. He played the role of a worried husband with unsettling calm. This is a critical psychological point. Chris didn't panic, not because he was innocent, but because he believed he was in control. He believed he had thought of everything, that the plan was clean, that no one would look too closely. He underestimated one thing: human connection. When Shanann missed a doctor's appointment later that morning, her friend Nicole Atkinson knew something was wrong. Shanann didn't miss appointments. She didn't disappear. She didn't go silent. Nicole didn't wait. She went to the house. This matters more than we often acknowledge. Many crimes continue or go undiscovered because people hesitate. They don't want to intrude. They assume everything is fine. Nicole didn't. Her concern set everything in motion. When police arrived at the Watts home, Chris appeared cooperative, calm, almost too calm. He talked easily, answered questions, walked officers through the house. But something felt off. As we watch the body cam footage now, knowing what we know, the signs are everywhere. The lack of urgency, the nervous smiles, the way he avoided eye contact when questions got specific. This is where the mask begins to slip, not dramatically, but subtly. And then came the neighbor's surveillance video. Across the street, a neighbor's security camera captured Chris backing his truck into the driveway early that morning, something he rarely did. As they watched the footage together, Chris stood beside the officer, arms crossed, shifting his weight, visibly uncomfortable. That moment is pivotal, because it's the first time we see fear, not for his family, but for himself. From that point on, the story unraveled quickly. Chris's statements became inconsistent. His timeline didn't hold. His emotional responses didn't match the situation, investigators noticed. And while the public would later debate motives, this much was clear. Chris Watts was not reacting like a man whose family had vanished. He was reacting like a man waiting to be found out. There is a moment in every interrogation when the room changes. It's subtle. No alarms, no shouting, just a shift. When the person sitting across the table realizes that the story they've been telling is no longer working. For Chris Watts, that moment didn't come with anger or panic. It came with silence. By the evening of August 13th, 2018, Investigators were no longer treating Shanann's disappearance as routine. Too many things didn't add up. Her phone was still in the house. Her car was in the garage. Her medication, something she never went without, was untouched. Chris Watts sat with officers, answering questions calmly, almost casually. He repeated the same narrative. Shanann had taken the children after an argument. She was emotional. She needed space. But what he didn't understand was this. Police don't just listen to words. They watch behavior. And Chris's behavior was wrong. He didn't ask the questions a desperate husband would ask. He didn't demand searches. He didn't break down. He didn't even seem impatient. Instead, he waited. Soon after, Chris appeared on local television asking for his wife and children to come home. "I want them back," he said. But his eyes didn't match his words. There was no raw fear, no cracking voice, no urgency, just performance. For viewers watching later, that interview became one of the most unsettling pieces of evidence, not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't feel. And investigators noticed the same thing. When Chris agreed to come in for further questioning, he still believed he was in control. He thought cooperation would protect him. That politeness would buy him time. What he didn't anticipate was pressure, not physical, not aggressive, but psychological. The room was quiet, neutral, almost friendly. Investigators asked him to walk through the timeline again and again. Each time, small inconsistencies surfaced. Times didn't match. Details shifted. His answers became less confident. This is where the mask began to crack, not dramatically, but internally. Chris was running out of room. The polygraph test was presented as an opportunity, a way to clear his name. Chris agreed without hesitation. That decision would destroy him. As the questions progressed, the results were unmistakable. Deception, clear and repeated. When confronted with this, Chris didn't react with outrage. He shut down. His body language changed. His shoulders slumped. His eyes dropped. The man who believed he was smarter than everyone else realized the truth was closing in. And then, something remarkable happened. When Chris finally spoke, what came out wasn't the full truth, but it wasn't silence either. He claimed Shanann had killed the children. He said he walked in and saw her strangling them. He said he lost control after that. This confession matters, not because it was accurate, but because it revealed how his mind worked. Even cornered, even exposed, Chris still tried to protect himself. He shifted blame. He rewrote reality. He chose the version of events that made him less monstrous. But investigators weren't buying it, and neither was his own father. In a private room, Chris spoke to his father, one of the most emotionally disturbing moments of the entire case. He told him he had killed Shanann, not with rage, not with tears, but flatly. This moment stripped away the performance. No cameras, no police tactics, just a son admitting to something unforgivable. And still, he didn't tell the whole truth. Over the next days, the evidence mounted. The affair came to light. The messages, the photos, the secret life, the motive sharpened. Chris Watts hadn't killed his family because he hated them. He killed them because he wanted a new life and didn't want to deal with the consequences of leaving. That distinction is important. This wasn't passion. It was erasure, and psychologically, that makes it far more chilling. As details emerged, Frederick changed. Neighbors reeled, friends mourned, the public searched for meaning. How could someone so ordinary commit something so horrific? The answer, uncomfortable as it is, lies in this truth. Monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like people we trust. Some confessions don't come because someone feels remorse. They come because there's nowhere left to hide. Months after the murders, long after the camera stopped rolling and the public outrage settled into grief, Chris Watts finally told the full story. Not in a dramatic courtroom moment, not in a burst of emotion, but calmly, methodically, as if he were explaining a series of unfortunate events instead of the deliberate destruction of his own family. And in that telling, we are forced to confront something deeply unsettling, not just about him, but about how easily danger can go unnoticed. In November 2018, investigators visited Chris Watts in prison. By then, he had already pleaded guilty, he had already avoided a trial, he had already accepted multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. There was nothing left to gain. And yet, when he spoke, his voice was steady. He admitted that he killed Shanann. He admitted that he killed Bella and Celeste. He admitted that he had thought about it before that night. That last part matters most because it confirms what this story has been quietly telling us all along. This wasn't a sudden break. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't uncontrollable rage. It was premeditation. Chris described the murders with emotional distance as if narrating someone else's life. He talked about regret, but not in the way we expect. Not grief, not horror, more like inconvenience, like things had gone wrong, not lives had been ended. This emotional flatness is not confusion. It's a psychological warning sign. By the end, the picture became clearer. Chris Watts was not driven by hatred, he was driven by avoidance. He avoided conflict, he avoided confrontation, he avoided accountability. And when faced with a situation that required him to take responsibility for the damage he'd caused, to leave, to explain, to lose his image, he chose annihilation instead. Psychologically, this is known as family annihilation motivated by self-preservation. In his mind, erasing his family was easier than living with the consequences of disappointing them. That's not insanity. That's entitlement. Chris Watts was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus additional sentences for the unlawful termination of Shanann's pregnancy. He will never be free. But justice, in cases like this, always feels incomplete. No sentence can restore what was taken. No punishment can undo the terror of that night or the absence left behind. What remains is loss. Shanann's parents lost their daughter. They lost their grandchildren. They lost a future that was already planned in their hearts. Bella and Celeste, 2 children whose lives were defined by trust, became symbols of innocence destroyed in the one place meant to protect them. And Nico, a baby who never took a breath, became a reminder of how many lives were erased before they ever had a chance to begin. This is the part of the story that doesn't trend, that doesn't get replayed on body cam footage. The quiet aftermath. The Watts case spread quickly across news channels, documentaries, podcasts, and social media. People searched for answers, for warning signs, for something they could point to and say, there, that's where it went wrong. But the truth is harder than that. There wasn't one moment. There were dozens. This case forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality. Danger doesn't always announce itself. Chris Watts didn't look threatening. He didn't raise red flags in obvious ways. He didn't match the stereotype people expect when they think of violence. But the warning signs were there. Quiet, subtle, easy to dismiss. Emotional withdrawal, extreme passivity, inability to express dissatisfaction, living a double life, viewing loved ones as obstacles instead of people. These signs are often overlooked because they don't feel urgent until they are. True crime is often consumed as entertainment, but stories like this demand more from us. They ask us to pay attention. They ask us to listen when something feels off. They ask us to trust discomfort instead of dismissing it. Because the most dangerous situations aren't always loud. Sometimes they're calm. Sometimes they're polite. Sometimes they smile. Shanann Watts believed in working through problems. Bella and Celeste believed their father would protect them. Those beliefs should never have been fatal, and yet they were. This story isn't about evil hiding in plain sight. It's about silence, avoidance, and the cost of emotional disconnection. It's about how easily a life can look perfect while quietly collapsing, and it's about why awareness, real awareness, can save lives. If you've stayed with this story until the end, thank you. If this case moved you, disturbed you, or made you think differently about the people around you, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support allows us to keep telling these stories responsibly, not to glorify violence, but to understand it and to recognize danger before it's too late. Because sometimes the most important stories aren't the ones that scare us. They're the ones that teach us to see